Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Angela, and so thrilled to have this special guest with me here today. I have Dana Wylder, and Dana is an energy healing practitioner, an author, and guide devoted to helping people reconnect with their bodies and rediscover their innate capacity for healing. After years of living in a state of disconnection shaped by trauma, chronic stress, and nervous system dysregulation, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a moment that became not an ending, but an awakening. Unwilling to accept a life defined solely by symptoms or limitations, she began a deep exploration into the mind body connection, subtle energy, and ancient healing systems. Through this journey, she discovered the profound wisdom of the five koshas, the layers of the human experience described in yogic philosophy, and began to understand that true healing must occur not just in the physical body, but across the energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions of being. I think that is amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time here today and for sharing with us your journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really honor people that make these kinds of spaces for these conversations to happen because I feel like the right person that needs to hear this message is going to find their way here. And hopefully, we'll get some kind of insight or something that will be a catalyst in change and hope in their life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm all about people telling their stories now. And it's so interesting because I was I naturally think I'm an introvert, or I've always thought that, and I've never been able to reach out to people and ask them. It just felt uncomfortable. And then when I went through this whole experience of losing my husband and stepped into this world, it just seems like now it's just the most fulfilling thing in life is to listen to other people's stories because I get so much wisdom and I know what you're saying about, that opportunity for that even one person to hear this podcast and to get the information that they need to help them move forward. I think it's amazing.
And it's these painful moments for us really are sometimes the catalyst for something else. And not even just that the pain can be alchemized into something beautiful once you go through the dark experience and you gain all of the insights and the tough sometimes lessons it teaches you. But also just that we need to go through these experiences to gain sometimes a depth of understanding.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's what you do with it. It's the meaning you make of it, and then you get out on the other side. And as long as you can find some kind of purpose and meaning in it, it doesn't necessarily rip us all the way down. It makes us sometimes more compassionate. It makes us healers. It makes us better listeners. It makes us understand life a little bit better, other people and ourselves.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. Yeah. So, um, tell me about the five koshas because that I stumbled on in the introduction, and I don't think I've ever heard of that.
So the five koshas is from yoga. So yoga, spans back 5,000 years, and so these are truths that don't need to defend themselves because they've stood the test of time. And we hear a lot of stuff about these things again becoming modern. Whether it's through quantum physics or through neuroscience and neuroplasticity and all of these new terms, but they're really speaking ancient wisdom. We're just finding a way to pair these two things together again. So the koshas is really this holistic way of looking at the being. So we start in the physical body, and not because there's any primacy to that, not because that's the most real. Actually, it's the most illusionary. Because really, if we, Tesla tells us if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. So our body are really just vibrating particles and they move so quickly that they look solid and the magnetic field of them gives a sense of solidity. but really they're just vibratory as well. But most of us start there. So we get sick and we think this is a physical problem. I've injured my body. I have a disease. I have a diagnosis. It's physical. And people, when they treat it only at the physical, which is what our system, the Western medical system, is doing, allopathic medicine. And that works fine if the injury only came from a physical thing. So if you had a car accident, if you broke your leg and you just treated the physical body, that makes sense. It doesn't treat chronic illness because chronic illness doesn't usually manifest in the physical body. That's downstream. It came from somewhere higher above. So this is when we start to move to some more subtle parts of our layer. And the energy body would be the next layer that kind of comes inside, concentric layer. And this, you could think the most common way to think of it is meridian system, chakra. So now traditional Chinese medicine explains this kind of invisible energy body where, if it gets stagnant, if it gets blocked, if there's not enough of it, we'll have pain, we'll have some kind of physical sensation in the body, or we're tired, fatigued, or even this kind of wired and tired where we could actually be overstimulated but still fatigued. So we go to the this energy body because energy is required to do the biochemistry of the body. But even when we get there, I found that it still fell flat for me. And at some point I plateaued. And so then I started thinking, well, if this energy is supposed to flow in the body, then how come I wouldn't sustain my own energy, or how come I don't have enough to heal myself? And so I started thinking, well, where will our energy leak? And this is when I got into the higher koshas, which is the mental body or the wisdom, intuition, kind of emotional body, because this is where some of the energy leaks start to happen. So if you have an emotion that you never let go of, so if you're holding on to resentment, or if you're very fearful, or what about if you have thought loops? So we're ruminating and we're playing these same thoughts over and over. How much energy is being drained from us when we worry about things like traffic and financial bills and the news cycle, which the world is pretty chaotic right now. And so when we're constantly not in the moment, not in our body, but projecting ourselves into these made up scenarios of past and future, we're draining our energy. So we want to get to those layers as well. And that will naturally lead us into regulating our nervous system, repatterning our belief systems. But if we want to go even higher than that, and we really want to get into the true essence of why are we even here? What is our purpose? What is our connection to, and I know not everybody is religious. So, whether you want to call it a soul, a spirit, divinity, or how neuroscience is kind of explaining it in quantum now, which is just the quantum field, that unified field of potential where we all originate, whether you think of that as pure science, as the Big Bang, and this is just the primal source of, energy that animates the body. And so the koshas is really explaining these things. It's a physical, energetic, mental, wisdom, and a bliss body. And when one of these things is ignored or has a deficiency, or maybe even too much of, because a lot of us have too much mental activity and maybe less taking care of our physical body or less spiritual practice, we become ill. And this is why chronic conditions kind of set in. So, as I healed myself, I kind of came across all these different parts of myself separately. And it wasn't until I heard this model of the koshas where I went, oh, they already knew this. We've been talking about this for a long time. It's just that we've forgotten that we are more than just a physical body.
Wow, I've never heard the our essence explained that way. It's just so you do it so well because I've heard about the different aspects of ourselves, and I believe in my mind it was a little muddled. It just feels to me like that was a very clear explanation of how things work. So when people get an illness, it could be in any of these places, spaces, or maybe all of them. I don't know. Um, what do we do about that?
So I think, the very first thing we need to do is take away some of the veils. So these would be things like, that are kind of covering our ability to see the truth and listen to them. So I would think these are toxic relationships, toxic food, a lot of the extra stimulation, like, too much Wi-Fi, too much blue screen time, too much of these things. And Some of these more subtle parts of our body, they don't speak loudly. They're very quiet, they're intuitive. And when we fill ourselves with this constant chatter and stress and busyness of doing all the time, then we don't really ever take time to listen. And as a matter of fact, that's where most chronic illness is allowed to take form, because we don't even listen to the fact that our body is struggling. We suppress it by masking symptoms. So when we get a headache, instead of thinking, am I too tense? Am I worrying about something? Did I not drink enough water? Like, it could be so many other reasons, but the first thing we do is just grab an Advil and we suppress the symptom. And so, of course, after a while, your body is going to start to scream, because if your mind doesn't do the work of taking care of your body, then the body is going to demand a seat at the table and say, well, I'm going to force you to sit down. I'm going to couch you by giving you a flu, by giving you a diagnosis, because there is sometimes a secondary gain of being sick. Sometimes it allows us to maybe not be at work, or to have our family not ask us to cook or clean again because not mom's got a headache today, right? And so even in these small ways, it's our bodies kind of trying to protect us. And we need, so not only do we need to take away some of these external pressures and stimulation so we can become a little more inward and a little more quiet with ourselves, but then we have to start understanding what the signals are trying to tell us. And what are the emotions trying to tell us? And really, this will require us to become a little bit uncomfortable, because I think that as a society, we've become very addicted to this idea that we should have comfort. We should be able to turn the heat up and down. We should be able to eat whenever we feel like it. We should be able to be happy and feel good all the time. So we shop whenever we feel something missing, or we scroll social media, or we gamble, or we drink. We have all these behaviors that distract us away from feeling what's really going on. And, I would argue that there is no good or bad emotions. There's just emotions. But there's some of them that we feel are uncomfortable to feel. So instead of sitting with the emotion and either processing it and just letting it move through, because just like our thoughts, the emotions are not always correct. Sometimes they're just, we're cranky today. We're going to yell at our children and nag them more because we didn't sleep, or because our boss yelled at us, or we don't have enough money to pay the bill. We're worrying. Is that emotion really true? No. So maybe this one, you just sit with it and let it move through you. But if you were to have an emotion and it comes up over and over, you need to maybe listen to that and take an action in the real world then, to remove or change or modify a situation to get you back aligned with that spiritual part of yourself. So if you're in a job that you hate, instead of complaining every day and draining your energy, which might lead to disease, which might eventually give you this disease where you don't have to go into work anymore. Perhaps if we made space for ourselves to feel those emotions, to feel the discomfort, and then to trust the intuition of what we should do with that. But all of those things are going to come from making more space in our lives. By far, we live way too quickly, way too rapidly. And I know people, when I talk yoga and meditation, a lot of people kind of glaze over. They're like, oh, that's not for me. I'm not going to sit down and meditate. But there's so many ways to kind of still our lives that don't require you to sit in lotus pose. They can be small little things that we just do in our day-to-day way of just acting and being in the world that can kind of create those little pieces of space where our higher self and our mind and our emotions, they get to chime in a little bit more. And the body also, it'll get a chance to say, I'm feeling this thing right now. Can you please take care of me? And then you're going to trust that that your mind is going to actually do the things your body is asking it to do, which sometimes for us is to work out more, and sometimes it's to rest more. But it'll depend on you and what's going on in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many, so much out there about what we should do to be healthy. There, you can listen to podcasts until you're blue in the face, and they'll talk about, this food is good, this food is bad, this much exercise is good, that much is bad, this supplement, da 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 da. And you can get mixed messages. So I have come to the conclusion, I wouldn't say I'm an expert at it yet, but I have come to the conclusion that all the answers are inside. And if we are going outside to try to get that information, we just get overwhelmed. Is that where, is that, Do you feel like that's an approach?
I
Yeah.
absolutely do. So, I mean, I don't consider myself a healer in the sense that I'm going to I can't actually heal you.
Right.
Your body heals itself. Even the doctor doesn't heal you. They can put a cast on you, but
Right.
your body is what's going to actually heal your broken leg.
Right.
And I think that we've actually lost what a doctor even means. It actually, the Latin word of doctor is an educator. So, I mean, how often do we go to the doctor and actually feel educated besides what prescription to take and where to pick it up?
Right.
Right. So I feel like, we have to become our own advocate. And, and this is not to say anything bad about the Western medical system because, I think they're doing their best, but they're overworked. We don't get a lot of time, at least in Canada. We get very limited amount of time with the doctor, 10 minutes and two questions. And generally, when you have a complex chronic illness or there's something that's really going on with you, that is not going to be enough time to really solve it because you would need such a big intake form. You need a relationship with your doctor. And so this is where people like me, when I come in with my clients, I have really a tight relationship with each person. We spend a lot of time together. And, it becomes a very sharing relationship. And people need to learn how to advocate for themselves, how to become their own best healer, because you know your own body better than anybody else.
Right.
And all that a healer, a doctor, a guide, what they're all really there for is just to help you learn things maybe you didn't know, how to ask the right questions, and just how to direct you. Like, even when I do hypnosis or neurolinguistic programming with clients, any kind of coaching or therapy for that matter, the best therapists never tell you what to do. They just ask the right questions. And
Mhm.
then you come up with the answers yourself because people don't really listen to being told what to do too often for most of us. Most of us actually, the change is so much more meaningful when we come to our own realizations. And so, everybody needs to really listen. And you're right, like the information out there is clickbaiting, it's constantly changing. Everybody's got even on the natural side too, everybody's got a protocol, everybody's got a supplement, everybody's got something. And it might work. Like if you read the reviews for something, that might work for one person, but what does your body need? Like that might not be the problem. Like my diagnosis with multiple sclerosis. And I don't even think that everybody that has MS even has the same disease. I believe that we have the same weak link where maybe we're exhibiting neurological symptoms, but I don't believe that the root cause of what caused each person who has those set of symptoms is the same. So the healing isn't probably going to look the same. And so when I work with people too, it really is about being curious and about trying things. And if, when you reach a dead end and that didn't work, instead of losing hope, it's just, okay, let's course correct. Let's try something else. And then you just keep working until you find whatever it is within that person. And it's not even that the solutions and what they need might be different, but what are people willing to stay consistent with?
Right.
So, I mean, I see a lot of people, and even though they say they don't want to see their doctor anymore for prescriptions, they think if they come to see me that I'm going to do one energy healing session with them or sound healing session and, oh, that's it, they're fixed. And it's not going to work that way. Like energy medicine, even though it can move quickly in the body, it is also not a magic bullet. It's not just a cure all. Really, if I put energy into the body and I align you, what are you gonna do with that when you leave? Are you gonna stop and eat some McDonald's on the way home and then go home and fight
Right.
with your spouse again? Because if that's what's gonna happen, any benefit is gonna be quickly, faded away by any subsequent action. So everything that you do needs to become an internal practice, a commitment, and a way of showing up for yourself. And as disease is kind of this layering on of death by a thousand cuts, because we just did one bad choice, one unhealthy meal, another drink, all of these things that we've done in our life. Healing is an undoing of that. So we're taking, something out of the bucket and we have to keep doing it because just like going to the gym, you don't go one time and then you're fit. You need to keep showing up and make it part of your lifestyle.
Yeah. And I like how, you explain that you need to keep looking at it. I think that, you know, with the different things that I've encountered, challenges with my health, I've always, definitely gone to the doctor, but also to the naturopath, also to the energy healer. So, and I keep searching and trying different things until somehow it resolves. And sometimes it takes a long time. for me to figure out that's going to work. And I guess, we're all wired to just find the answer. Like, where's the answer? And I just want it now so that I can get over this, which makes perfect sense. I mean, why wouldn't we? But yet it's really a process.
It is. And I would also say that it changes over time too. So even under the model of the koshas, and I'll use myself as an example. When I first started with my MS, I knew right away that because I already had a really healthy skepticism of the Western system, and I knew the drugs they were going to offer me, which is in essence to kill my immune system for the rest of my life. That yes, maybe there was some way that that was going to stop my body from attacking and causing damage in my spinal column and my brain, but it was also going to make me at higher risk of cancer, for brain infections, for all kinds of infections in the body. And at least for me, and this is not a judgment on other people's choices, because as we're discussing, everybody should be really doing what is right for them in their circumstance. But for me, I knew I wasn't going to do that. And so I started those still with diet, exercise, physio. And it was very much still in this, I'm going to overcome my disease. It's something that I can use my strong mind to do something with my body to make it just heal. I'm going to fight against my body. And I started there. And like I said earlier on, I didn't get all the way. So when I started adding other things, but as I've worked from years now, and I've gone through all of my childhood trauma, and I've left my toxic marriage, and I've left my job I hated, my life is beautiful now. And I wake up every morning inspired. I'm very aligned with my purpose. So I moved up through all of these layers and I did plug all my energy leaks, but yet I still haven't healed my body completely. And so I have to go all the way back down now to the physical body and say, okay, there's something here that I didn't get right the first time. And so I'm going to revisit it with the new lens, because as my journey has evolved, the way I view my physical body is also different now. When I did it the first time, it was pushing against, it was kind of angry with my body. I was trying to think like, well, just mind over. And as long as my mind is strong enough to say, well, just run anyway or do another set of, squats or whatever it is, and you'll be fine. I still didn't have relationship with my body. And so now as I'm treating the body, I'm doing it in such a different lens because I have all these other understandings, having worked through these other layers, is how to listen better to my body, how to respect it, and how to show up for it, where some days, yeah, you push through even though you don't like it, because, self-care and self-love some days means working out when you don't want to. But on other days, it could mean, you know what, I don't have it in me today. Today's a nap day, or today's a day where I cancel appointments and I decide I'm just, having a me day. And that's acceptable too. But it's like, how do you get the intuition and the instinct to understand what really is going on in the body, and understanding even the symptoms through the new lens that I have, which is, what is the symptom actually trying to show me? So again, I'll use myself for the example so that people that are listening can maybe start to see how what's showing up for them in their body might mirror something emotionally or energetically on the inside. So MS, my current symptom that I struggle with is my balance. So when I walk, every so often I fall down or I put my foot in the wrong place. So it's kind of a weird gait that I have. And what would that mean? So maybe energetically, that could mean that I'm not sure of my next decision in life. I'm not confident of the path I'm choosing next. I don't feel like, sure-footed, or that maybe the carpet's going to get pulled out. Maybe things are going too good. And maybe a little piece of me thinks, oh, well, that means that, they're going to rip the carpet out and I'm going to fall. So there could be all of these energetic things that are happening at these other levels that are showing up as the actual way the body is speaking, because our mind, I think most people are aware of the left and the right brain, and we hear conscious and subconscious, but what does that really mean?
Mhm.
So the left brain is really like this analytical side that is likes language and categorization and judgment, and it likes to have certainty and to describe and control things. And the right brain is more speaks in like symbols, colors, metaphors, analogies. It doesn't really understand time and, things in the same way that the left brain does. The body very much is right brained. That's really, that's what it speaks in symptoms, and in feelings. And so when the body is trying to communicate with this very analytical mind, which most of us are doing way too much of, the
Mhm.
body is going to do it in emotions and in physical symptoms and sensations. So, my belief is that the body is actually communicating through what symptoms it gives you. And your job is to then understand, well, what is that message? And what is the body trying to tell me? And then taking that message upstream and maybe using that to navigate, what path in life you're taking, what relationships you're choosing to have with people, how you're engaging with the rest of the world.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That makes so much sense. And so, you know, um, looking with that lens, Louise Hay, um, and different people have tried to make those connections between what the body does and what's happening. Um, and so have relationships with certain parts of the body and pain in certain places being, um, uh, I guess, message that this is what we need to do, or the thoughts that we need to change, or whatever, or the belief systems that need to be adjusted. Have you looked into any of that? I'm sure you did.
Yeah, so there's quite a few different views. A lot of overlap. So I have different books that talk about the like because I use sound healing as one of my modalities, and so when you're doing that, I'm striking a tuning fork and I'm combing into the person's biofield, which starts usually for most people around 6 feet out, and the outer layers will be the youngest ones from childhood, and as we get closer to the body, it becomes more recent events in our life. And as you're kind of combing, different parts of the body are energetically tied with different things. So whether you're looking like the chakra like system, like your root chakra being more about the physical body, and then your heart more about, love and relationships, crown the spiritual, or is it actually the different physical parts of the body, the shoulder, the knee, and there is maps of how these things show up in the body. But the whole idea that with the tuning fork is as you're moving through there, the tuning fork is going to make a sound that um, is mirroring what the body is projecting in its biofield. And so when I strike the tuning fork, if it starts to sound irritating or like wobbly or wavy, or there's some kind of dissonant sound, I'll just hold it there for a little bit. And that can be telling depending on how close to the body and at which location around the body that oscillation is showing up. And as you hold it there and you keep striking it, the body will start to hear what it sounds like, and the body will hear that sound frequency being off and not where it should be. And so the body will start to correct itself through entrainment. And so it's almost like going to a therapy session, but without talking about your emotions or your problems, because I don't have to know why this thing at around 30 years old near your right hip is talking right now.
Right.
And you don't even need to know either. It's just that we can hear energetically that there's something stuck there. And then you just hold it there until the body starts to create a nice harmonic frequency again. And I mean, this can be taken even further, like talking about autoimmune disease. There is a personality type that, again, with MS, as an example, is shows up over and over, that people that end up exhibiting MS. And it tends to be people who have like very A-type personality, high energy, perfectionists, doers, overachievers, and people who are very judgmental of self, like they critique themselves a lot. And so these people tend to end up with autoimmune disease. And again, to talk about how that could pair with what autoimmune disease really is, it is the body attacking itself. So if you live in a state where your behavior and your actions and the way you think in the world is to be hyper competitive to yourself and to life and to always be, judging all of these things, well, then your body is no wonder at the cellular level is behaving in the same way. It's mirroring the larger projection of your body, which is we have to be hyper vigilant. We have to be perfect. We're on guard. We're going to attack everything, even ourselves. We're going to be just on overdrive all the time. And so, yeah, I mean, what shows up physically in the body can be mapped in a lot of ways to what symptoms you have, what disease you have, and where in the body it's showing up.
And so if you are that type A personality, which I completely understand, um, what do you do with that?
So I think that, especially for people that still want to, and you can't change completely your
Mm.
personality. I mean, you can learn over time how to work with who you are, and you can adjust in some ways. But being A type is not all bad either. You don't want to get rid of all of those behaviors because these people make effective multitaskers and running businesses, and they're very successful people, and they really push the agenda for a lot of things forward that otherwise might not. But it's about, I think, always, if we're going to go back to this idea of adding space between everything, which is the essence of in yoga, what you're doing in meditation and any of these other practices is creating this space. And, to do that, I think we'll talk about the doing then, because this is the A type, is the doers. It's not that you're going to stop doing, but when I first got diagnosed with the MS, I was trying to do everything. And even when I meditated and I did yoga, it was very much, I have to check off my list. I ate my organics, I did yoga, I meditated, I walked the dog in nature, check, check, I grounded, like all the things became another task in a to-do list for me. But were all of those things necessary? Did I need to do all of them every day? Was it too much? Because now I'm fatiguing myself. Now I'm giving myself this thing to push against. So I think that instead of just jumping in at the doing, especially with these A-type personalities, but everybody though, this is across the board, is before you get to doing, go back to being. So being is going to slow down first, and this is where we're going to listen to the symptoms, listen to the emotions, sit with them, really be okay in that moment. And even when things are not okay, because it's not always okay, things bad will happen. You'll lose your job, your pet will die, things will still happen in life. You're just going to be with it. You're going to let it move through you. You're going to sometimes be sad if sadness is what's, on the table today, but you're going to change stations when it's time for you to move on from sadness. But
Um,
once you're good with being and you know how to just slow down and be there, when you start to do again, your doing is going to be much more inspired because it's not going to be frantic doing anymore. It's not going to be doing for the sake of doing. It's not going to be doing without understanding why or what the benefit is. After you've really been with yourself, you're going to know how to do in a much more efficient way. So it's this idea that we're going to slow down to speed up.
well,
And once we've done that and the actions become intentional, meaningful, and then they'll have the intended benefit upstream, which is going to be having. And now we're going to have the healthy environment, the body, the mind space, the actions in our life that are going to facilitate this life we want. And the having will just fall into place by adding the being before the doing.
wow, I love that. Absolutely love that. So, I mean, I'm sure that everyone who's listening is as intrigued as I am. How do we find you?
So my book, Unlearn Disease, Relearn Wellbeing, is available on Amazon. And there's also a companion book that goes with it. So for people that, don't want to just read the insights and the information there, then there's this workbook. So you can go through and all of the healing activations that are part of it. You can really have the journal prompts and the insights and the space to really practice those in an embodied, down to earth, actionable way. And then you can also find me on my website, energyovermatter.com. And on my website, we do free healing circle every second Wednesday via Zoom. So anybody's welcome to join that. And then you can also book any of my services, either in person or remotely, depending where you are. And find me on any of the standard social media under Energy Over Matter.
That is amazing. Is there anything else, advice you want to share or things I haven't said before we go?
So my favorite one, because I like things that are free and simple. So as much as I like healing and treating and working with people, the idea is that you don't need me for long because you get enough tools that you can just be on your own from now on. And even when those bad things happen, that you know how to come back to center for yourself. So the quickest, easiest way to access that to me is through gratitude. So
Mm.
gratitude is immediate and it changes your articulating, activating system. So this is what we pay attention to in life. So it's just like this idea when you're about to buy a white Jeep, all of a sudden, all you see is white Jeeps in the environment. Whatever you look for, you will find. And so if you have a belief about anything, it'll be true, whether you believe the thing or you don't believe it. Your mind is making the reality in which you see. So when you switch to gratitude, gratitude is instantly going to change the frequency. And the thing about it is, I know people say love is the highest frequency, but love can sometimes be difficult depending on our circumstances or what's going on around us. But gratitude is something you can have even in the darkest of moments. Because even like in the time when my MS was so bad that all I could do was crawl on the floor and I needed to be cared for, I started right there saying, I'm grateful that I have a floor to lay on. I'm grateful that I have a blanket. I'm grateful I have heat on the house right now. I'm grateful that I have somebody that's going to help me get from the floor to the couch. And it's like, it wasn't toxic positivity. It's just really finding, even in those darkest moments, there's always something there that you could be grateful for. And as soon as you start to change that frequency to scan the environment, then even when things are not good, even in the dark moments that you're having in life, you're still going to find the silver lining. You're still going to find a reason why those things have a place of beauty and meaning in your life. And that transforms not even the good times, the hard times. The rest of your life will be vastly different if you can find gratitude in all situations.
Yeah, beautiful. I I think that is a perfect way to sum up this interview. Thank you so much for doing that. And I encourage people to check out your book and my website, your social media. I know I certainly have. Uh, Thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I love having these conversations.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for listening. And bye for now.